Hello, everybody. Good Saturday morning. We have a long day of college football ahead of us. And by the way, come watch me stream the watch along of the Husky Spartans game in about 5 hours. Going to be doing that whole game in all likelihood. But yeah, we got to get through this one first. We got Seahawks Lions stuff to talk about. Kickoff in about 25 hours tomorrow morning. And this is a pivotal moment for a lot of things, I think. I think this is a. We're going to learn a lot tomorrow. I can say that. I feel like I learned a lot last week, but I think I'm going to learn even more this week because you are playing a team that is almost certainly better and going to have a better season than the Rams will. You are playing a team that had playoff aspirations going into the season, like big, obvious, clear playoff aspirations. And you're playing a team that is feeling good about themselves, maybe more than any other team in the league. Detroit Lions last week went into Arrowhead, and I know it was messy. I know they didn't do everything that led to them getting that win, but they beat the defending Super Bowl champions. That feels good. Like, whatever butt you can put on the end of that, that feels good. And that's a good Detroit team they got there. They got some really good stuff going on over there. They found something nice with this coach. They found something nice with this quarterback who was basically a castaway just a couple of years ago. And they're a threat. And now we're going into their home trying to find a way to not start 0-2. And you want to talk about two teams that are going in completely separate directions. Both teams came into the season with expectations. The Seahawks kind of destroyed their expectations as much as can be destroyed in week one. The Lions met and exceeded their expectations about as much as any team could in week one, in 1 week, rather. So it's two teams that came into the season in a similar position and are going in opposite directions to the extreme. So that's kind of an interesting storyline, an interesting subplot here. Now, I'm sure this Seahawks team is going to play better than they did last week, but that's not going to get it done. And I'm sure they're going to come out embarrassed and motivated and desperate and all these things that do make teams play above their heads. But I don't believe that being desperate and being embarrassed and being humbled or however you want to put it after that week one game, I don't believe that any of that stuff is going to be enough to beat Detroit in Detroit. So, on top of those things, if you want to win this game, you need to play well. You need to find a way to play well. It's not enough to be motivated. It's not enough to be hungry. It's not enough to be humiliated from last week. You got to find a way to just execute. And we've got some things working against us in this game for sure. We've got injuries to key players, but so does Detroit. Realistically, Detroit, they're not as injured as we are, but they've got their own set of problems. They're not going to feel bad for us. So it's going to be a tall task. I don't know if the team is up to it or not, but they have answered the bell before in this exact situation. So it is possible there's some middle ground here where the Seahawks lose, but look good enough to instill some confidence. That's possible. That happens. But at the end of the day, we really need to start finding a way to make up for that really bad week one loss, because contrary to what some people try to claim in my comments, I firmly believe that a couple months from now we're going to be looking back at that week one loss with a lot of humiliation and shame. But time will tell about that one. So let's talk about this Lions team a little bit here, just talking about the X's and O's, because obviously we just spent a bunch of time talking about humiliation, talking about motivation. Teams usually bounce back after an embarrassing loss, etc., all these things. But let's talk about the Lions team, and let's start with their offense, because I think this is the side of the ball that poses the biggest threat to us. And it is the side of the ball where we need to see some signs of life immediately. Like right now, in this game. Not next week, not next month, not next season, right now. So, the strength of the Lions offense, I think, is in their offensive line. They got a great offensive line. All 5 spots are solid or better. Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, both their guard spots are solid. The only issue they have is Taylor Decker's probably not playing. I don't expect him to play at all. So Taylor Decker being out gives them a weak spot at that left tackle spot. And I don't know if they're going to bump Sewell over or not. They probably should, but they probably don't want to mess up their rhythm. So they won't, I don't think. And they're going to have a backup over there, and you can take advantage of that a little bit, but the rest of that offensive line is so rock solid, they might be able to cover for it fairly well. So I'm thinking about that offensive line, thinking about how weak this defensive line looked last week, how ineffective our ability to get to the quarterback was against an offensive line that, even if you think the Rams are going to be good this year, almost certainly that Lions offensive line is going to be much better because that Lions offensive line has some blue chippers that the Rams just plain do not have. So it's going to require much better play. And yes, there is some part of this that you put on the players, right? Because I've spent most of this week talking about coaching, talking about front office stuff, but we are just going to need better stuff from the players. Draymond Jones is going to have to be better. Nwosu's going to have to be better. Maffei's going to have to be better if he plays, by the way. Game time decision there. Same with Devin Bush. And we're going to need all of these guys to maybe overcome a bad scheme. And I'm sorry, but that may be what it really comes down to here. They just need to win their one-on-one battles. And I know it's unfair. I know that in an ideal world, we'd have a competent coaching staff that can come up with some stunts, come up with some creativity, come up with some ability to manufacture pressure and get the defensive line in a position to succeed. But we may not have that, so these guys might just have to overcome that. And that might be what it takes to win this game. And it's a completely unfair position for these guys to be in, but it might be the position that we're dealing with. So I'm thinking about that. Also, with this Detroit team, obviously they're getting good play from the quarterback, Jared Goff, going on some crazy interceptionless streak. We got to find a way to break it, guys. We got to find a way to break it. No turnovers last week. Highly unacceptable. I know Stafford played well in that game, but you got to find a way to get some turnovers here. And it's not like you did anything to try to get him to turn the ball over. You didn't pressure him. You didn't throw any exotic looks at him. You just sat back and let him pick you apart. Sorry, but that's what it is. And Goff is somebody who will possibly give you an opportunity to take the ball away. You just have to get him uncomfortable. It can be done. It can absolutely be done. We've seen it many times before with him. You get him uncomfortable, he will give you some opportunities to make plays. Now, what we can say is that Goff is going through a pretty remarkable streak of not getting in those situations. But we're going to have to be the team that breaks the streak, period. I don't think we win this game without at least a turnover. Probably multiple turnovers, if we're being honest. They got some nice playmakers on that offense. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of my favorite players in the league. Got him on fantasy, and yes, I'm going to have to start him in fantasy because I not that I take fantasy football all that serious anyway, but I know the matchup. I know how this looks. I know how this may go. I got to go with it. But I would be very, very happy if we could find some way to slow that guy down. He is their main threat as a receiver. They got some other guys. They got Marvin Jones. He's still kicking around. He's pretty close to the end of his career, though. They've got a couple. I think they still have Josh Reynolds, if I recall correctly. But it's all about the Amon-Ra St. Brown show. And bottom line is, we are putting a massive, massive load of responsibility on the shoulders of Devin Witherspoon to turn this secondary around. Because, look, the pass rush was bad last week. Bad. Very, very disappointing. But probably even worse than that was the play of the secondary. Tariq Woolen was the only guy who felt like he wasn't getting picked on. And even Tariq Woolen didn't play a great game. He played okay, but Mike Jackson got picked on. Trey Brown got picked on. Kobe Bryant got picked on. Julian Love got picked on. Quandre Diggs, I know he didn't give up anything statistically, but there were some drops that really could have been on his head if the ball was caught, a very routine pass, and he just couldn't bring it in, and receivers just can't bring it in. I think Van Jefferson dropped a touchdown on Diggs, so everybody in this secondary, except for Tariq Woolen, was getting picked on, it felt like. And maybe you could probably find one of the, like Artie Burns or something, right? But Artie Burns didn't even play that much and probably won't play that much in this game, so that's kind of a big whatever. But Devin Witherspoon is going to have to completely change the direction of this secondary because he's going to have to be somebody that the Lions do not feel comfortable targeting. He may end up being the guy who follows Amon-Ra around, especially if we start this game in our zones and Amon-Ra's just motioning over to Trey Brown or Mike Jackson every play and getting open every play. There may come a point where we go, okay, we need somebody good to follow that guy. Probably going to have to be Witherspoon. So, wouldn't surprise me if the game goes down like that and we say, okay, we're going to throw our top two corners at their top two receivers. We're going to make somebody else. Obviously, we saw last week that some relative no-name receivers can beat up on Trey Brown and Mike Jackson and Kobe Bryant, but we're going to have to try. We're going to have to try to find a solution the best that we can here. And to me, I would really like to see Witherspoon, even though I know it's his first game and I know you're kind of throwing him into the deep end here, follow Amon-Ra St. Brown around. And you've also got Jahmyr Gibbs, of course, really fun, really talented, really capable rookie running back. Pretty good game last week. The Lions are finding some creative ways to use him. And that's actually kind of the X factor of their whole offense. Their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, one of the best in the business, probably going to be a head coach next year. So it's a great offense. It's an offense that took some steps to improve on a unit that was very good last year. They were top 5 in scoring, and they added guys like Jahmyr Gibbs. So they are a threat. They're a danger. And bottom line is, if you want any chance of winning this game, the defense has to show up and play well. The offense will not carry us. So that's where I say a huge chunk of this game is on Pete Carroll, Clint Hurt, and these defensive stars to grow very quickly. Grow very quickly beyond what we saw last week. If we play like we did last week, I fully expect the Lions to put up 42 points. I can absolutely see it. Now, I don't think we're going to play like that. But can this defense go from what we saw last week to something good that quickly? That seems like... That doesn't seem very realistic to me. That doesn't seem like something that can happen. So, all I know is that, like I said earlier this week, and I'll say this again, Pete Carroll, now you're earning your money. Because with the situation on offense, which I'm about to get into, this defense just has to find a way to play well. And I've seen them do it before. That 2018 defense, and I know 2018 was 5 years ago, forever ago now, that 2018 defense had so little talent, it's not even funny. That was Bobby Wagner, Frank Clark, Jaron Reed, and then a bunch of whatever guys. Because KJ Wright got hurt and Earl Thomas got hurt. I remember there was a game where all of our linebackers were hurt. We were literally playing linebackers we had just signed a few days prior. And that defense was pretty decent. That defense was above average. So, I've seen it before. Now he has, I think, more talent than he did in 2018 by a long shot. So, you got to find something that works here, guys. And you don't have time to, we don't have time to wait until week 6 for you to figure it out. It's week 2. We need it now. So that's what I can say about that. The Lions' defense was bad last year. Main reason why they missed the playoffs. Well, if you want to be specific, they missed the playoffs because they played so bad early in the season. But at the same time, their defense was a lot worse than their offense throughout most of the year. I mean, remember when we played them last year, we didn't punt once that whole game, and we didn't have a turnover the whole game. And they almost won anyway because their offense was so good. So their defense is a problem, but they did a lot to address it this offseason. They did some stuff that I like. They completely revamped their secondary with Brian Branch, one of my favorite rookies, Cam Sutton, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And I think that's really about it for this game. Obviously, they're not going to have Emmanuel Mosley because he's hurt, but they've remade their secondary into something a little more credible. I think it's a pretty good secondary. They're probably not where they're going to be by the end of the year yet, but they played respectably well in week 1. Obviously, they were helped tremendously by the Chiefs receivers, but that is a secondary that is not going to get run over the way we ran over them last year. That was the year when Geno and DK and everybody just went off. Probably not going down exactly that way this time. However, they are down a couple of corners with Mosley and shoot, they one of their backups. I can't remember the name, but they're down two non-trivial corners in this game. So you got to attack that area of the team when you can. I know it's not going to necessarily be easy because of the stuff going on up front, but your receivers are still your strength. Metcalf, Lockett, JSN. You still got to find a way to get those guys the ball. You got to find a way to make sure they have the opportunity to earn their money and earn their credibility around the league. We have one of the best receiver cores in the league, according to most people. And week one, I don't even know if our top three guys combined for 100 yards. Off the top of my head, I don't think they did. They may have not even combined for 80 yards. So that can't happen. And I understand that they never had the ball in the second half. That's not totally their fault. But the point is, you are going to still have to find a way to get the ball to the receivers. And it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, but hey, Shane Waldron, this is an opportunity for you to show that you have something, an extra gear, a special gear where you can adjust your game plan and find a way to get it done even when you don't have everything working in your favor. And boy, do we not, because of what is going on with this offensive line. With Cross out and Lucas out, I mean, guys, I'm sorry to have to tell you guys this if you didn't already know, but Stone Forsythe's our left tackle, it looks like. Peters, not ready yet, no surprise there. And the other guys we brought in, they don't... I seriously doubt they're going to be better than Stone Forsythe in any appreciable way. It'll be like this, if they're better, by this much. So Forsythe's on the left side, Curhan's on the right side. That's what we got. If we lost one of those guys, I might say, okay, it's not that hard to cover up a bad tackle as long as you send running backs over there to help, tight ends over there to help, as long as you just avoid that side of the ball in terms of running it, that side of the field running the ball. There are ways you can do it, but when you lose both, that's tough. And I do expect something better than what we got against the Rams when those guys left, because now they've had a week to plan for it. They've known for this last week it was going to be like this. So there should be something better this week than what we saw last week, just because they've had the opportunity to think, okay, this is the situation. How do we make the most of it? So what I'm looking for is a lot of three-step drops, a lot of getting the ball out of Geno's hands quickly. We're going to have to try to find some kind of screen game, some kind of quick pass game, a lot of swing passes. We're going to have to try to find stuff like that. And if we try to push it, if we try to act like we've got our tackles out there, then guys like Hutchinson and Houston are going to be a massive problem all day. So those are the stakes. Like, Geno's going to get killed if you try to play a traditional game plan. And some of this is on Geno too. Get the ball out quickly. Get the ball out of your hands quickly. I'll take an incomplete pass. I'm not going to put it on you. But if you hold on to the ball too long and you get sacked, I'm going to start putting that on you. There were a couple of plays last week where I'm not saying this cost us the game at all, not even 1%. But it was after both tackles were out of the game. There were some plays where Geno was just holding onto the ball, waiting for something to develop downfield, when he clearly doesn't have time for that. Nothing's going to develop down the field in time for you to get the ball there. So none of that doesn't need to be happening pretty much at all in this game. If you want to make anything big happen, it's probably going to have to be some kind of trick play or misdirection play. They revamped their linebacker room as well, so running the ball is not going to be as good as it was last year when Rashad Penny ran all over him, dominated him. I don't know what the running game is going to be like. Now, I will say this. Jay Curhan, in the past, has proven pretty good run blocker on that right side. You throw him on that right side, and even, maybe, I mean, I don't even want to say it because it's going to get people all rabid about it, but I almost feel like if you threw Damian Lewis and Jay Curhan on the same side of the offensive line and ran the ball that way, a lot of good things would happen. So I don't know if the team has it in their arsenal to do something like that, but I'm looking for stuff like that right now. Tell me what these guys can do and figure out a way to take advantage. Jay Curhan can run block. Jay Curhan is a good run blocking right tackle. Try to run the ball his way. And then you're dealing with Phil Haynes, not much of a run blocker over there at right guard. That's why I'm saying maybe you're going to have to dig deep in the well of creativity here and move your guards around. I know it's not what you want to do. Might be what you have to do. And Stone Forsythe, you can't run block at all. I don't know if he can do anything that well, quite frankly. I'm kind of thinking that's a sunk cost, but the thing that he has a chance to be able to do is pass protection. So you're going to have to not run the ball over to his side. That's putting him in a position to fail. You run the ball to the left behind Stone Forsyth, it's going to end badly. We've seen that movie enough times already. So I'm looking for stuff like that. Just be smart. I'm not expecting the offense to be able to go off in this game. I'm not expecting a ton of stuff from this offense. I'm expecting better than last week, but I'm not expecting a very good game. I'm just not. Which is why it's hard for me to see this team winning. But if you want to give yourself a chance to win this game, then just play smart. Do things that make sense. Don't put Stone Forsyth and Jay Curhan in situations where they have to play like Pro Bowlers. They're not going to do it. Don't expect this offense to look the way that you thought it was going to look before the season. There's no way it's going to. Find other ways to get something done, and I can go home with my head held at least a little bit high about that. All right, I'm going to get out of here. See you guys later. That's how I feel about this one. It's a tall task, but doable, and I've seen this team answer the bell before. Let's see it again. Go Hawks.